Hey, how's it going? I just got through watching a video posted on the Young Turks channel. I'm going to include a link below. Now, Cenk and Anna have made no bones about the fact that they don't approve of what Brian Bates, the so-called video vigilante of Oklahoma City, is doing and has been doing for like the past 14, 15 years. What Brian does, for those who don't know, is he videotapes men picking up prostitutes off the streets of Oklahoma City, especially in the South Robinson area, and he follows them, and then he waits until they stop somewhere, and he waits until they're about to get into the act, and then he walks up to the car, flings the door open, and videotapes them saying, "You're busted, buddy." Now, Anna and Cenk brought up something that I was unaware of, that Brian supposedly, in addition to posting the video online, which I already knew about, that he sent copies of the video to the man's wife and to the guy's friends on Facebook. Now, as far as sending it to the guy's friends, I would have an issue with that because it's none of their damn business. It's none of my friends' business what I do if what I'm doing does not affect them in some way. I think that sending it to the guy's wife, certainly it is her business, because if she is having sex with her husband, um, she should have, she should be armed with the information of knowing that her husband has been picking up and having sex with street hookers and potentially exposing her to diseases such as AIDS, herpes, chlamydia, hepatitis, God knows what else. I think she does have a right to know. So that's not something that I have a problem with. He has been posting the videos online and has been doing that for quite a while. What Cenk and Anna did not bring up is the real story behind why Brian does it. Their point was that what they think is that Brian has appointed himself as the morality police in Oklahoma City, and he's going to go out there and publicly embarrass men who are picking up street prostitutes because he thinks that he's morally superior. That is not why Brian did that. What motivated Brian to do it was that he became very alarmed and disgusted at the fact that prostitutes were plying their trade and were soliciting men on the streets of the city, regardless of what kind of neighborhood it was. It doesn't matter if it was an industrial area, a residential area. It doesn't matter if it was in front of someone's house, if it was in front of a school, if it was in front of a church. It doesn't matter. That they were just out there all the time. And he felt that the Oklahoma City police were not doing enough, were not doing anything to discourage this or to even try to keep it from happening. So he took his video camera out and he engaged in a one-man crusade to bring attention to the world of the realities of street prostitution on the streets of Oklahoma City and to publicly embarrass the Johns who were picking these women up. Now, it is a simple law of economics of supply and demand. In other words, if you have a demand, you make sure you have enough of a supply of any particular product or service. And if it wasn't for the Johns being out there in sufficient numbers to pick these girls up, the hookers would not be out on the streets in the numbers that they are. But there are a lot of girls out there because there are a lot of Johns out there looking to pick these girls up for, cheap sex. And I think that Brian's efforts, they do raise a certain legal issue, at least in my own mind, as far as walking up to someone else's car and flinging the door open. In Honolulu, you could be arrested for that. That is called unauthorized entry to motor vehicle. And with the videotape of him actually doing it, that would be more than enough for him to be arrested. Apparently, it's not enough in Oklahoma City. I think maybe, I'm just guessing here, that it would actually take the person whose vehicle it is to file the complaint, whereupon this person would have to admit in court, or at least on a police report, what he was doing when Brian, made his unauthorized entry into their vehicle by opening the door. Now, you don't have to physically go into the car or to the vehicle to have an unauthorized entry. All you have to do is open the door, if you're not the owner of the car. Now, anyway, but as I said, it would take somebody actually to complain. It would actually take someone getting up in court and say, "Yes, Your Honor, I was having sex with this prostitute I picked up, and Brian Bates here just opened the car door and started filming me." There are legal issues that could smack Brian upside the head if he runs into the one guy who doesn't have a wife at home and doesn't care if the entire world knows about it, that someone would drag him into court and say, "Well, Your Honor, having sex with a prostitute is a misdemeanor, and what he did, just going by Hawaii law, what he did is a felony. He opened my car door without my permission." Okay, so yeah, Brian could get himself into some problems, but in 14 years that hasn't happened yet. Now, Brian has been threatened. There was a hooker who threw a rock at his windshield one time, but he has never, to my knowledge, ever been physically assaulted. I believe he has been threatened, but as far as him actually getting into a throwdown with somebody, that has not happened at all in 14 years. And Shank and Anna have said, "I'm surprised this guy hasn't gotten his ass kicked." And actually, a lot of people who've been following Brian's story are likewise very surprised at that too. But that's not really all Brian does. In addition to bringing national attention to the widespread activities of street prostitution in Oklahoma City, he also brings up news stories of people who have murdered prostitutes who have been killed by their johns or killed by their pimps, pimps who have assaulted prostitutes, and crimes committed against prostitutes. And he's actually helped some women get out of prostitution. And women who get out, they go back and they thank Brian. Actually, one of those, at least one or two of those women is actually friends with him on Facebook. And they tell him, "Yeah, you're being out there and watching out for us." And Brian, it's not that Brian looks down his nose at these prostitutes, but the people that Brian really has a great deal of loathing for, the two groups, the pimps and the johns. The pimps, because they run their hookers like slaves. And in fact, that's really what they are. I was unaware of the fact that some pimps have their names tattooed on the bodies of the prostitutes that work for them to show other pimps, "This is my property. This is my slave. You don't touch it." And when a pimp, aside from their own, drives past in his car or walks behind his car, the other hookers, keep their eyes down, or they turn away, or they get into a submissive position so that, not to draw attention to themselves. And these sorts of things, I think most people are really unaware of. I think if more people were aware of the reality of the life of a prostitute, that more attention would be given to arresting pimps. Now, the Johns also bear a significant amount of the blame themselves. Now, is Brian a major force in cracking down on street prostitution? Is street prostitution, reduced because of what he does? No, I don't think it's made any significant dent whatsoever. I mean, a guy gets caught, he gets videotaped, his wife leaves him, goes on. If you're in the habit of picking up street prostitutes, you're going to do it again anyway. But you might stay away from wherever the hell he is, wherever the hell Brian is, but you're going to do it eventually again. So, I don't think Brian has made a dent in the street prostitution scene in Oklahoma City. I think a lot of people are getting an education in what it's really like, how the prostitutes are really treated not only by their pimps but by the johns. And you see these girls who are, girls, not women, 14-year-old girls out there walking the streets of Oklahoma City. And I think that Shank and Anna really are paying no attention to that part of it. There is severe human trafficking going on. And a lot of the human beings who are trafficked, women especially, women and many children who are trafficked, do eventually end up working in the sex industry, either as street prostitutes or working in pornography. Some of them get into strip clubs and that sort of thing. So Cenk and Anna, while I can understand where you're coming from and why you might feel the way you do, I think that in this particular case, you are 100% wrong. Brian has not set himself up as any sort of morality cop. He is not doing this in order to, to masturbate at home to the videos he takes. I think that he has brought attention to a very important issue. And to be blunt, I think that you should take the time to get to know the man a little bit better. Look over his Facebook page, see the things that he actually has written about, posted there, and how people react to him. And then I think, in all honesty, I think you should come back and apologize to Brian for the things you said about him, because it takes a lot of guts to get out there and do this sort of thing. I don't think personally I could do it, and most people could not do that sort of thing. I don't think that he has made a dent in Oklahoma City's prostitution problem, but I think that it's better for him to do what he does than to totally ignore the issue. Anyway, you guys take care. It's Fix Scary 808. See you again soon.